Jumping right in, I love this question. What are some intriguing parent myths that you've busted wide open in your book? Can you share a couple that might surprise our listeners? I can't wait to hear this.
So, what I love about my new book, Bite-Sized Parenting, you can see it behind me. I know it's backwards, so for those of you who are watching, is that I really not only focus, that's mostly a book about parenting your baby in the first year, but I also focus on the parents. Every chapter, monthly chapter, also has a section for parents. And so one of the sections for parents in one of the chapters is about this myth busting. And I do like to talk about some of the expectations that we have as parents, even before we become parents. Things that we think it's going to be like, especially in the beginning. And then what happens is we realize, well, it's not really the case that it meeting my rainbows and butterflies and unicorn expectations.
Welcome to the Momnificent podcast. This is the place where we help parents live a happy, healthy life with their kids. We're going to show you how to connect with your child and help them even in their most difficult moments, as we hear from experts in the field. I'm your host, Dr. Karin Jakubowski, an international speaker, public school principal, and former struggling student. The Momnificent podcast equips parents with science-based strategies to help you live a happy, healthy life with your kids. Welcome.
Saying hi to all of the friends who are joining us. It's so fun to see everybody joining us live here. Hey, thanks for coming. All right, so Sharon, say your last name for me.
It's Mazel.
Awesome. I was like, oh, I got to make sure I say it right. Okay, so for those of you who might not know, Sharon Mazel is our guest this evening. So excited to have her. You're going to get so many beautiful and amazing nuggets tonight. I just cannot wait. Sharon is an internationally recognized parenting and pregnancy expert, author, parenting coach, and mom of 4, not just 1, 2, 3, but 4, with over 24 years experience in the field. She is author of the book, I love this, Bite-Sized Parenting, because we all need bite-size because nobody has time for all the things these days. Your Baby's First Year, which was previously with the What to Expect book series. Her writing and parenting guidance has also been featured in many magazines and newspapers and online. Sharon, welcome to Momnificent.
Thanks so much for having me.
Did you want to add something there?
No. You got the big stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's good. I am so excited about this, and so I'm going to jump right in. Okay, I'm going to surprise you with a question I did not tell you ahead of time, which is, this is just like a fun, like icebreaker one. What's something that you've done recently that you may have not done for a while that just brings you joy?
Oh my goodness.
I love that.
I just had a Toblerone bar, the entire bar in one sitting.
Wait, what size was it?
It was not one of the huge ones. It was like, this size, right? But it was still the whole bar, and it was still in the whole sitting. And I love chocolate, but I haven't done that in a while. So it brought me a lot of joy, let me tell you.
Okay, are you German in your background at all?
I am, yes.
Because that's how I know it. My dad was born in Germany. And that's how I know it from being in Germany before it probably hit the U.S.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, is it Swiss? I think it's Swiss, right?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so. They have like the Alps on the yellow bar, box. So it's delicious no matter where it came from.
So good. That is an addicting one. I have to admit, you cannot just eat one piece.
Exactly. They trick you because they break it up into small little nuggets, but which is actually a great segue into my book, which are also small little nuggets. But that was really tasty. So yeah, you did not tell me about that question in advance, and
I know
it brought me a lot of joy.
Sometimes I throw it in there, and then sometimes I get right into the interview. But someone asked me that on an interview once, and I loved it so much, I stole it, and I. So wait, so quickly, what is your German connection to your background?
My grandparents are originally from Germany. We're from Germany. And so, I know a little German.
It's so cool. So my dad was born there, and my grandparents lived there their whole life. They never spoke English. They visited like once or twice here, but how cool. What a neat connection. Yeah. Okay. So jumping right in, I love this question. What are some intriguing parent myths that you've busted wide open in your book. Can you share a couple that might surprise our listeners? I can't wait to hear this.
So, what I love about my new book, Bite-Sized Parenting, you can see it behind me. I know it's backwards, so for those of you who are watching, is that I really not only focus, it's mostly a book about parenting your baby in the first year, but I also focus on the parents. Every chapter, monthly chapter, also has a section for parents. And so one of the sections for parents in one of the chapters is about this myth busting. And I do like to talk about some of the expectations that we have as parents, even before we become parents. Things that we think it's going to be like, especially in the beginning. And then what happens is we realize, well, it's not really the case that it meeting my rainbows and butterflies and unicorn expectations, excuse me. And then then we feel bad, we feel guilty, we feel sad. And I hope that by sort of bringing some of these myths in one of the sections out into the open, we can demystify some of the ideas that we have about parenting, and also help us feel better about ourselves when we do encounter this. So what's one of them? Well, I'll give a few, but one of them is that we're going to enjoy being a parent every single moment of every single day. And I have, as you mentioned, I have 4 children, and I love them all dearly, and there have been wonderful moments with them. And also, because I'm being honest, many not so wonderful moments with them. And I didn't enjoy, and I don't enjoy every single moment of being a parent, even though I love being a parent. And especially in the first year, especially in the first few months, when we're dealing with a crying baby, a baby who is needing to sleep and eat and poop all the time, when there's no communication really, I'm talking about the newborn stage, it's really hard to enjoy it, to feel the joy in it, besides the fact that if you've given birth, you're also recovering from childbirth. So when we have this expectation that every moment is going to be blissful, and then it's not, then we feel like, whoa, what's wrong with me? Why don't I love being a parent? So that's one myth that I like to bust and say, you know what, there's going to be times when it's going to be hard, it's going to feel not so great, and that's okay. That's okay, and it's normal, and everybody feels that way, and there's nothing wrong with you. Another myth I think is important is that we sometimes feel like we're going to be able to manage it all on our own, right? That we're going to be able to do this solo, whether we're solo or we have a partner. But I like to remind parents that we don't get a medal for doing it on our own, and that asking for help is really important, because it is hard to be a parent. It is hard to be a parent of a newborn. It is hard to be a parent of a 5-month-old. It starts to get a little easier, but also harder as children get older. But, enlisting help from a family member, a neighbor, a friend, paid help if you could afford it, will really go a long way into helping you as a parent feel confident as a parent, feel good about yourself as a parent, get sleep if possible as a parent. So those are just 2 myths, and I can go on and on because I talk about a bunch more, but those are the first 2 that pop into my mind.
I love that. And I think especially the first one will really just probably connect with people, because you can look at others and think they all have it better and right, and what's wrong with me, or I'm the only one going through this, and helping to expose that, you know what, we all are feeling that way, and that's okay. And I think that's a huge, especially in a society where we show up and we look like everything's together, we all have it, it's not, there's a lot of messy behind those moments, and sometimes there's more of the difficult than those beautiful moments. So that's such a good point. Give us a glimpse into a few reassuring "you're still a good parent if" scenarios from your book, and what are some of those that might offer solace to a new parent listening right now?
So this is another topic that I talk about in one of my other month chapters, and it sort of is in the same vein as this myth busting, to remind parents that you still are doing a great job, even if some of these things crop up, which they will. So some of those things might be feeling overwhelmed by daily decisions, because there are 1,000 choices that we have to make as parents. What to feed our children, how to feed our children, what to clothe them in, whether to sleep train or not sleep train, how to, what stroller to buy. There's 1,000 decisions that we're making. We get this kind of decision fatigue and overload. But you're still a good parent, even when, not if, but even when you struggle with them or you feel overwhelmed by them. So that's one thing thing that I like to remind parents. Another you're still a good parent if would be if you have to rethink or you choose to rethink your work situation, going back to the office or choosing to stay home, making choices, changing those decisions. So many parents, moms in particular, feel like, okay, I'm pregnant, I have a baby, you know, baby's coming in a month or two, I'm going to finish my maternity leave, however short or long that is, and I'm going to go back to the office and be perfect with it. Or vice versa, I'm going to quit the job and stay home and take that job full time of being a stay-at-home parent. And then the reality of, now I'm home with my baby and I'm not loving it. Or now I'm back in the office and my baby's back home and I'm not loving it. And so being able to be reflective and say, you know what, the decision that I thought was going to be the right decision for me a month or two ago may not be the best decision now. And that could be any time in the first year. It could be any time in you know, your entire career as a parent. And it's okay. You're still a good parent if you choose to reassess. And I think that giving ourselves that opportunity and that freedom to say, I don't have to have it all figured out right away in the beginning. And I think another, you're still a good parent if is similar to that, and that's about breastfeeding. You can make a choice to breastfeed, and then you could realize it doesn't work for me. Or you can make a choice, I don't want to breastfeed, and then you feel like, wow, it's kind of easy and I could do it. Or you can make a choice to only pump, or you can make a choice to only feed formula or to do a combo. There's so many different permutations of how you're going to feed your baby in the first year. And making those choices, having the opportunity, and, you know, luckily for us, we have the freedom in a way to make those choices. We have so much available to us in terms of different, you know, formulas and bottles and all that stuff, and obviously nursing bras and pumping bras and pumps. There's so much out there. So making that choice and even changing our minds about whether we want to breastfeed, stopping to breastfeed, those are all good choices. And, you know, if it works for us, right? If it works for you as a parent, and you're still a good parent if you choose something different than you thought you were going to do in the first place.
I think that is so freeing, because listening right now, parent, tell yourself whatever phrases resonating in your head, in your mind, that's nitpicking at you today, put that either before and you're still a good parent, or you're still a good parent, and insert that phrase and end it again with, you know what, I am still a good parent. Parents need to feel that. They need to hear that, because there can be so much critical and negative judgment, like, that weighs you down. And I love what you're saying. I think it's so freeing and so empowering. And I know this is like just touching someone's heart who's listening to this right now, who's just thinking to themselves, oh my gosh, I so need to hear that. Thank you, Sharon.
I mean, I hope so, right? That's my mission. It's really to reach parents where they are, giving them the bite-sized essentials for how to care for their baby, but also not to neglect themselves. And that's what we're talking about today.
It's so important. So, okay, so then let's jump into the comparison trap, right? Another thing that's just like, can just weigh on you and just sit, and you just feel like you're sinking inside yourself. The comparison trap is something many parents fall into. Can you elaborate on how your book addresses this and provides some guidance for navigating that tricky little area?
So I always say that I feel like we're in this very intense culture of comparison. And a lot of it is because we see so much parenting around us. So in the olden days, when there was no social media, when there was no internet, the only people that you would see who are parents were those who lived near you, or your family members, or those in the playground, or a carpool pickup or drop off. But now we get to see millions of babies and their parents online, right, on social media. And what happens is we're looking at other babies, other parent-baby triads or dyads, and we're like, why is that baby sitting and mine is not even rolling over yet? Why is that baby eating so well on his own, but my baby won't even like take, you know, stuff from my spoon? Why is that baby so much bigger than mine, right? There's so many ways that we can compare our child to other children out there. And it leads to doubts. It leads to guilt. It leads to uncertainty. What's wrong with me? Why is my baby not taking those first steps? And he's already 12 months. And she over there has been walking since 10 months. What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? And it's very disconcerting as a parent, especially a new parent when you don't have any comparison in your own family. And it really diminishes our sense of confidence as parents. And so I really encourage, I do this both on my social media and on in my book, of course, in Bite-Sized Parenting, to really not compare, any feeding or size or milestones or multitude of things. How this baby sleeps, that baby's already sleeping through the night, mine isn't. Don't compare, because it's so important to remember two things. I'll give you two things. Number one, the range of normal when it comes to milestones, those milestones like rolling over and sitting and crawling and walking and talking, the range of normal is so wide. So that means that the vast majority of babies in the first year, and then onwards, are fitting into that very, it's almost as big as that Toblerone bar, right? It's very, very wide. And so there's going to be some babies that are, my second daughter started walking, I'm not kidding you, at 9 months old. My God. 9 months and 1 week. Yeah, she was tiny and she was bald. She looked like she was 4 months. And she was taking those first steps at 9 months and 1 week. Oh my other, one of my other kids didn't take their first steps until after she was 12 months old. They're both within the very wide range of normal. And so if we remember that as parents, that there's such a wide range of where we can have our babies fit into those developmental milestones in particular, that would give us some solace to know, my baby is really doing fine. And of course, having that wide range of normal allows us to also know when our babies are really not within that wide range of normal. And then that gives us the opportunity to get extra help, to get a consultation, let's say with a speech therapist or a psychologist or an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, because early intervention makes such a difference. And so we have that opportunity. So that's the first thing I would say about comparison. Okay. And the second thing I would say is that, and I know you want to jump in, but this is so important.
No, maybe think of something, but go ahead. You finish your second point. I love it.
That every baby is different, and every parent is different, and every situation is different. So if you're comparing the way that your baby sleeps, how many naps your baby takes, or how long those naps are, to another baby's sleep, what you're going to do is you're really comparing apples to oranges. So yes, at a certain month, there's going to be a certain number of naps and a certain number of hours during the day that most babies will sleep, but each baby's schedule is going to look slightly different. And so when we recognize that, and it's not just about sleep, it's about anything, it's about feeding, it's about size, it's anything, right? Anything that I mentioned. When we recognize that every child is different, and every situation is different, every parent relationship with their child is different, that what works for me may not work for you and your child. And that's great and okay. And so we don't have to compare, because the comparisons aren't fair. So those are the 2 points, right? Remember that there's a wide range of normal, and remember that every baby is different. So that could help us from stopping to compare, and it could help us feel a little better about our own child, or where they land, because it's 90% of the time going to be just fine.
They're okay.
What's
good for them is okay. You know what, Sharon? It's so interesting, because it makes me make this connection where I think of kids in elementary school, where they show up and we teach them reading, writing, math. Let's just stick with those 3. And we get so frustrated at times that, oh my gosh, they're not like the perfect reader, and they're not the perfect writer, and they're not the perfect, the mathematician, like right away in every grade where they all should be. And somewhere along the line, I must have read something that really clicked with me. And I think it syncs with what you were saying. Kids progress at different rates in different areas. But yes, we show up in a school system where you're rated and it looks like we should all get straight A's everywhere, because that's good, normal, average, whatever. But in reality, not all of us are A+ writers, mathematicians, and readers as adults. But yet, how much pressure do we put on that in like an elementary age, or like a report card, right? So sometimes I'm like, wait, there might not be anything wrong. Your kid just might be progressing at their own rate. It's not this bar up here that we all know we think it should be. And so sometimes I'm like, we're not robots. It's not like a computerized system that's just perfect in everything. And that's where it reminds me of something similar to what you were just saying.
100%. I actually use that phrase, your child is not a robot, all the time.
I love Yes, I do too. Because sometimes we just have these expectations, and it's like, No.
Exactly. I do parenting coaching, so I speak a lot of times one-on-one to parents. I do that all the time, actually. And that's really one of the lines that I use all the time, because because of this culture of comparison, we expect our kids to fit into a certain mold. And you're right, it happens when you're babies, it happens in the school age. And it's just not true. We are not alike, right? Even if we have similarities, we're not alike. So why would we expect our kids to be exactly on the same path at the same time in the same way? So
Good point. Such a good point. I love, love, love that. Okay, so let's jump into, because social media is everywhere and we have this false ideal of like, oh my God, everybody's life looks like that all the time. I love to say it's moments in our lives, people. Like, none of our lives are like that all the time. So with the omnipresence of social media, how do you think it contributes to parental overwhelm? What's one piece of advice you want to share with our listeners today about that?
so this is my mission. I am looking at parents today, and I've been doing this for a long time, 25 years in this field. So I have seen the difference, and I've seen the difference even with social media and what that is doing to parents. It is very overwhelming for parents today, and it's tough. It's really tough. And yes, social media is a huge part of that, because there's so much information overload. There's so much overwhelm. And what's happening is there's three things with social media. One is, and I love social media because I think there's a lot of positives. I'm on it every single day. I have hundreds of thousands of followers, and I love interacting with them. I answer all my DMs. I answer all my comments. I think there's so much positive to social media because there's a great way of getting out information in ways that are bite-sized and quick and easy. And it's really wonderful. The downsides are, on the other hand, though, that number one, it becomes overwhelming because there's so much information. There's so many accounts that you could follow that it's really hard to discern what's trustworthy and what's not, what's opinion and what's based in science and data. Why is this person saying X and that person saying Y, and how do I reconcile that, and what do I do with my own child? And so it's very, I think it's really important for all of us, no matter the topic we are delving into on social media, to really understand whether the sources that we're looking at are trustworthy. So I'm always evidence-based. I'm a journalist by trade, so I'm constantly doing the research, combing through the data, reading the journal articles, and then distilling all of that and communicating it into a way that's easily digestible for parents. So know who your sources are, know where they're getting their information, because we want to be able to separate fact from opinion, and making sure that as parents, you're getting trustworthy facts so that then you can be informed and educated, so that then you can make the choice that makes the most sense for you. So it's really important when we're talking about the overwhelm of social media to understand, who's trustworthy and who may not be. And I'm not blasting anybody in particular, but choose one or two or three sources from social media that you've vetted and that you feel aligns with where, you want to be as a parent, and that aligns with your need for evidence-based science, data, that sort of thing, and stick with them, and then kind of tune out the rest. Obviously another trusted source would be your pediatrician, of course, and maybe, a friend who's really, or a parent, a grandparent who's really knowledgeable. So that's one of the issues with social media that could be negative. And a second, and we sort of talked about this already, is those unrealistic expectations that we get from social media, because, and this here I'm not talking about some of the expert social media accounts, but more of, let's say, the influencers, celebrities, mommy influencers, who I love, right? I'm not, talking, negatively about any one in particular, but they're doing a job and they're presenting themselves in a way that is aligned with their job and their persona, which is great. But it doesn't always show, as you mentioned before, the messiness and the reality of their lives. So I can't tell you how many new moms say to me, why my baby's 4 weeks old, still a newborn, and I still look like I'm 4 months pregnant, but so-and-so celebrity is posting themselves in a bikini 2 weeks after they give birth. Why? So let's, forget about Photoshop and all that, and filters and all that. But it's presenting an unrealistic expectation or reality of what your real life is going to be.
Right.
You can look at beautifully decorated homes when there's 3 kids in the house and not a toy or mess or a piece of laundry in sight, and you're like, huh,
Boy.
right, like, come on, like, my house doesn't look like that. And then again, we get that, well, what's wrong with me? And there's nothing wrong with you, right? You are living the reality. They're living or they're not living, but they're presenting a persona that makes sense for the job that they're doing, but probably in their real life, there's plenty of pieces of Lego that they're stepping on, and laundry that's piling up, and dirty diapers in a pail. So, like, you know, let's understand that. Be a discerning customer of social media, so it doesn't overwhelm us so much.
That's so true. That's so good. So what's one last final thing you want to leave our listeners with today? The moms who are tuning in, they're listening to this, even dads, do follow this channel. And what's one thing you just want to leave them with, a word of encouragement? I mean, you've said so many beautiful things. What's one thing you want to leave before I ask them how they can find and follow you to continue?
So one of the things that I really focus on in bite-sized parenting, and really all of my courses and my coaching and my social media and my e-guides, is that that there's so many decisions that we have to make in that first year, and in the toddler years and in the preschool years, and then on. But I kind of, you know, stop at the preschool years, at least with the expertise that I have professionally. My kids have passed the preschool years. That's personally. There's so many decisions, and we get very caught up in them and very overwhelmed with them, as I've mentioned. But what I like to remind parents, or let parents know, is that aside from medical and health, black and white issues, right? You should always put your baby to sleep on their back without pillows and blankets and bumpers, or make sure that your baby's always strapped into a rear-facing car seat until until they hit the weight or height recommendations before flipping them forward. Those are kind of black and white health, safety, medical, let's say, issues. So aside from those, most of the other choices or decisions that you feel overwhelmed with, they don't really matter what you do. Like, it doesn't really matter if you choose A or B, because in the end, what matters most is that you choose what works best for you and your child, and your baby's going to be okay. Your child's going to be okay. If you choose to start feeding solids with purees, or you choose to start feeding solids with the baby-led weaning method, which is finger foods, your child will still know how to eat eventually, for the most part. If you sleep train or you don't sleep train, eventually your child will probably sleep through the night. There are so many decisions that are feel so heavy when we're going through them, especially in that first year. And it doesn't really matter. And I mean, it matters so that you feel good about it, right? Choose and, get yourself educated. And that's why bite-sized parenting is great, because it has all that information in there. It presents everything, and then it allows you to choose what's going to work for you. Is your baby the type of baby that's going to be on a schedule? Great, then make a schedule. Is your baby more of a free-for-all? Then fine, don't do a schedule. Like, it really doesn't matter, as long as it works for you, and as long as you as a parent feel confident about what you're doing, because then you're doing the best for your baby, and it doesn't matter what you've chosen.
Yeah, and if how they are giving you that feedback is working, like you said, who said it's wrong?
Exactly.
But we can get so caught up in the, oh my God, is it right? Like, even that can drive you crazy and take your weight and your thought, your energy.
Exactly.
So save that energy for what you want to show up to be, who you want to be as the mom and in your family.
Exactly. And save that energy so that you could take a deep breath and take a step back, so that you that you're able to realize, you know what, I'm doing a great job. I'm doing what I can do. I'm doing fine. I'm giving myself some grace. I'm giving myself that breath. I'm taking a step back and understanding that this moment and this time is not going to make or break my child or my relationship with my child or any of those things. I'm doing what I can do, and I'm doing a great job.
You're doing a great job. And you know what? I know someone listening right now just needs to hear that. And we're just going to say it one more time. You are doing a great job. Sharon, how can someone find and follow you?
So you can find my book, Bite-Sized Parenting, wherever books are sold, on Amazon, in Barnes & Nobles and bookstores, also on my website, which is sharonmazel.com. And you can find me on Instagram, Sharon Mazel. I try to keep things simple. It's just my name. And I look forward to seeing you guys on social media. And also, I look forward to you guys getting your hands on Bite-Sized Parenting, because it really is the most digestible parenting book out there that will arm you with the information and all the things that we talked about today in a digestible format, an illustrated format. so that you have accessible strategies and tools at your fingertips.
That is awesome. Sharon, thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure and enjoy speaking with you. And thank you for who you are, showing up, helping so many in this world, and continue your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Momnificent podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be honored if you would subscribe and rate if you really liked it. I know wherever you're listening right now, it might not be the best time to leave a comment, but feel free to leave a question, a review, or a comment at any time. And until next time, remember, don't worry, be happy.